Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward.
Chapter 1. So dark. Is the light off? Where is this place? In the end, what happened? Feeling this dark world, Roland gradually became more sober, and memories began to slowly emerge. My name is Roland. I'm a college student who just graduated. I just finished a reunion with my classmates and was walking home. Then, a dazzling light suddenly appeared in front of my eyes. After that, I can't remember. Was it hit by a car? Or was there an explosion? But, no matter what, if you still remember, it means I'm still alive. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. By the way, isn't this too dark? Roland muttered in his heart. Suddenly, he was startled suddenly, and realized something not so good. It seemed that it wasn't that the surroundings were too dark, but that he couldn't open his eyes. Wait a minute. Something seems wrong, take a deep breath and calm down first. 5 seconds later. I can't feel the breath, could it be that I'm already dead? But, isn't my consciousness still there? Is there really a soul after death? But I haven't heard that the soul can't open its eyes. Calm down. Calm down. Now is not the time to mess around. How can I be calm in this situation? Roland was really panicked. He tried his best to feel his body. The first is the hands and feet. Unfortunately, not to mention the fingertips, neither the arms nor the thighs and calves respond, as if they don't exist. And then the head, well, the head is gone too. Next is the 5 senses. Vision, it was pitch black. Hearing, there was a dead silence all around. Smell, can't even feel breathing. Taste, how to eat is still a problem. Touch, not even a healthy body. Roland was completely hopeless. According to legend, there is a kind of torture that keeps the prisoner in the silent darkness until the prisoner goes mad and commits suicide. He feels that he is experiencing it himself. Suddenly, with a swish, something seemed to touch the body. Hey? Do I have a body? Roland was startled, but he couldn't feel it. Swish! That touch was there again. Roland began to concentrate on feeling that position. Gradually, as other parts also appeared this feeling from time to time, he vaguely felt the range of his body, but why did it seem to be a circle? He was a little puzzled, but more joyful, because the existence of touch, one of the 5 senses, meant that he could feel the world again. When the touch appeared again, Roland wanted to feel it more, subconsciously leaned over there, and then, his body moved. It can actually move. Roland exclaimed in his heart, but, why does it feel like crawling? He became more and more confused. However, amidst the doubts, he also had some vague guesses, but they still needed to be verified. After moving aimlessly for a while, Roland felt that he might have figured out the situation. The body is not the original body, but there is no discomfort, you can move freely, and the consciousness is completely normal. Isn't this the soul where? But, what kind of creature did he cross over to? No limbs, no facial features, a round body. Roland thought for a long time, but still had no idea. Instead, I remembered another big event. Any creature needs energy to survive, right? I don't seem to have a mouth, how can I eat? Will I be the first one to starve to death because I don't know how to eat? A time traveler, right? After thinking of this, Roland kept thinking about eating. Suddenly, a voice sounded in his mind. Do you want to use the unique skill Predator? Wait a minute. The amount of information is a bit too much, please let me take it easy. Roland was stunned. Why is this line so familiar? Thinking about my physical features again, no limbs, round body. Come on, although I don't hate it, and even think it's a bit cute, but if I really want to become that. Roland felt a little uncomfortable, but he knew very well that now he had to accept the reality that he was indeed soul-pierced and reincarnated as a slime. After secretly feeling sad for a while, Roland finally accepted his fate and began to think about the next thing. By the way, isn't there a system? Roland reacted and shouted in his mind, "Come out! System!" No respond. What's the situation? I shouldn't have heard it wrong just now, although I don't have ears. Is there any trigger condition to be met? Thinking of this, Roland thought about eating again, and sure enough, the voice appeared again. Do you want to use the unique skill Predator? Yes. As soon as he finished answering, Roland felt that his body began to deform, covering something in an instant, and then something entered his body, and slowly disappeared. Roland, who has watched the anime, guessed that this thing should have been received in a place similar to a stomach pouch, but there is no way to verify it, and the system doesn't seem to be able to answer his own question. After that, Roland decided to try whether his predator also had other functions, so he muttered in his heart. Parse it. Parse it. Do you want to use the unique skill Predator analysis? The voice appeared again. Yes. Roland was a little excited. Sherna grass, a common grass, is occasionally used as a raw material for medicine, but the effect is not very good, and there are too many substitutes. Although it was just ordinary grass, Roland was not disappointed. How could there be any reason to encounter divine grass casually? Moreover, this discovery was enough to excite him, and Roland began to frantically hunt and analyze the surrounding things, such as grass, stones, flowers, and so on. Until a certain moment, Roland realized that he had preyed on a living creature, an ant. Thinking of another ability of Predator, Roland decided to try again. But things were much simpler than he thought. As soon as he thought about it, the system sounded. Do you want to use the unique skill Predator mimicry? Yes. Roland became more and more excited. As soon as the words fell, he felt that his body began to shrink, and there was no longer darkness in front of his eyes. It's blurry and has a small field of view, but at least it's bright. Gradually, Roland felt that he could control the 6 little feet, and began to crawl. However, before he had climbed a few steps, a huge monster suddenly appeared in his blurred vision, galloping towards him, as if he was about to eat himself. Subconsciously, Roland turned back into a slime. Then, I felt like I was pressed into something, and then there was a familiar system prompt. Do you want to use the unique skill Predator? Of course Roland chose yes. Chapter 2. After praying, the next step is naturally analysis. According to the analysis results, the monster just now was actually just an ordinary lizard. This discovery made Roland give up his plan to mimic the world as an ant. It was too weak and dangerous. So, similarly, he has no intention of mimicking a lizard. After all, in Roland's view, lizards are similar to ants, and there is no need to waste time getting familiar with a body that is destined to be useless. And, let's be honest, lizards and ants are not as good as slimes. He continued to walk around and pray, expecting to meet stronger creatures. As for whether he can beat the opponent, he hadn't thought about it yet. At a certain moment, Roland felt his body suddenly drop, and then became light and heavy again, entering an extremely wobbly state. Moreover, half of the body has a feeling of being wrapped by something, as if it is still being pushed forward by something. Could it be that I fell into the water? Roland was a little confused. Although I don't have to worry about drowning because I am a slime that doesn't need to breathe, but how do I go ashore? I don't have hands and feet that can swim. Mimicking ants or lizards doesn't seem too safe. To be honest, Roland doesn't know if they can swim. Moreover, this water does not seem to be a still lake, but more like a river. It is leading itself forward. Where will it be taken? For a while, Roland fell into thought. While thinking about it, he didn't realize that the flow of the river was not slow, and before he knew it, he had already drifted a long distance, and at a very fast speed. Suddenly, probably because of the impact, Roland felt a slight pain in his body. However, before I felt it carefully, the pain disappeared, and then the system voice sounded. It is detected that the host has a sense of pain, and the attribute pain invalidation is activated. It is detected that the host is under physical attack, and the attribute physical attack resistance level dash is activated. It is detected that the host's body is damaged, and the attribute automatic regeneration is activated. Roland realized instantly that the pain just now was probably the last time he felt pain in his life, and he couldn't figure out whether this attribute was good or bad. After all, it's good to be pain-free, but it's not so good not to feel hurt. Now, I can only hope that the automatic regeneration attribute will be stronger. If the regeneration speed is fast enough, there is nothing to worry about getting injured. After recovering from the sound of the system, Roland felt his state again. He should have stopped, but the lower half of his body was still soaked in water, which meant that he was still in the river, probably blocked by branches or the like. As mentioned earlier, as a slime without arms and legs, Roland couldn't control his movement in the water at all. After working hard for a long time and still being unable to do anything, he even started to think about whether he should turn into an ant or a lizard. At worst, he would just change back when he was about to drown. It's a pity that he hasn't figured out which of the two can swim better, and his body suddenly rises and leaves the water. Because of the squeezing feeling on both sides, Roland guessed that it must be caught by something. Out of the instinct to protect himself, he subconsciously wanted to prey on the opponent. However, as soon as the thought came up, he restrained it, because according to the shape of the source of pressure, this should be a human palm, if there are humans in this world. Fortunately, this suspected human guy did not hurt himself. Roland felt that he was carried and moved for a while, and then he was put down. According to the touch from the bottom of his body, he should have been placed on the grass, and it was the denser grass. He didn't act rashly, but quietly waited for the other party's next move, but nothing happened. Did that person just leave? Roland guessed, and crawled to the side at the same time. However, before climbing a few steps, he found that he was hugged by two hands again, the same hands, but unfortunately, because the touch from Slime's body was different from that of a human body, Roland couldn't guess the owner of these hands is male or female, old or young. After that, Roland tried to escape several times, but was caught every time. Now, he was a little panicked, something seemed wrong. After finally getting acquainted with this Slime's body, why did he encounter a crisis so soon? Although the other party didn't seem to intend to hurt him, being imprisoned is also a bad thing. Roland has already begun to imagine the tragic picture of being placed in a culture tank as an experimental product. However, Roland also knew that these were just his own guesses. After all, he couldn't see or hear it, and he didn't have any source of information at all. Now, Roland has three choices: one is to try to escape, the other is to continue to wait, and the third is to stand up and resist. If you want to escape, it's definitely useless to use the slime's body, and I've tried it just now. As for mimicking an ant or lizard, Roland felt that it was not very effective, unless the other party really didn't want to hurt him, otherwise, it should be easy to catch an ant or lizard. Moreover, one important point is that Roland doesn't know if other slimes in this world can imitate. Before you have the ability to protect yourself, it's better not to show your specialness, otherwise the chances of being treated as an experimental product will increase a lot. If you continue to wait, what will happen is completely unpredictable, which is no different from sitting and waiting to die. However, there is also a problem with resistance. Roland does not have any attack ability now, only a predator skill that can barely be used as an attack. However, whether he can successfully prey is a problem. Moreover, even if he can successfully prey, Roland is still a little bit resistant. As a good young man in the 21st century, in his previous life, Roland never even got into a fight, and he didn't have any psychological problems. He never even thought about killing people. Now, let him just kill someone he doesn't know at all. It is also possible that the person who rescued himself from the water out of good intentions could not overcome this hurdle in his heart. Just when Roland was wondering if there was any other way, he found himself being hugged again and started moving again. Just like before, the other party hugged him very lightly, and he didn't seem to have any malicious intentions towards him at all. This kind of situation that can only be imagined in his heart made him more irritable. He really wanted to find out what happened. Finally, maybe the system heard his wish, and another voice appeared. The analysis work has been completed, and the next step is to build the system visualization. It is detected that the host is trying to activate the additional skill element perception. The elements of this world have been analyzed, and the skill can be activated. Do you want to activate it? The word perception hit Roland's heart immediately, and he decisively chose yes. As soon as the words fell, the surrounding scene turned into huge data, which suddenly entered his consciousness. Chapter 3. In this data, there is not only light, but also sound. Roland guessed that the principle may be that the system preys on and analyzes the elements reflected on itself, and converts them into information that it can understand. However, the principle is not the key is that my vision and hearing have recovered. No, it's not just recovery, it's completely evolution. After all, a human's perspective is not even 180 degrees ahead, but because the entire surface of the slime's body can receive elements, Roland can now have a panoramic view of 360 degrees in all directions without any dead ends. Moreover, the angle of vision has also improved, and even the dark places of rocks, or scenes hundreds of meters away can be seen clearly. If he is still a human being now, he may not be able to bear this huge pile of data, and his head may suffer severe pain or even be stretched out. However, he has turned into a slime, and his whole body is a cell. This cell is not only a muscle cell, but also a brain cell, so it managed to hold on. Sight and hearing reappeared, and the world was presented to him as a matter of course. First of all, Roland saw the person holding him. Well, she was indeed a person, and it was a little girl with short blue hair, a red ribbon headband, and dark blue short sleeves. Roland always felt a little familiar with the light green suspender skirt. However, he was also a little thankful. Fortunately, he didn't prey on the little girl just now. After all, she didn't look like someone who would hurt him. Then, his own body, as imagined, oval-shaped body, no facial features, a proper slime dot. As for the color, it should be blue, and it is a relatively light blue. Finally, Roland began to look around. There was a blue sky above his head, dotted with a few white clouds, and the sun was very warm, which was a good weather. And where I and the little girl are, one side is an open and vast grassland, and the other side is a wall, that is to say, the little girl is walking behind the house. Some of these walls are made of masonry, but more are made of wood, and the house is regular. Looking through the gaps between the houses, Roland can see a street. The ground is a compacted dirt road, and there are pedestrians on the road, and there are vendors on the side of the road. Although the number is not large, it is enough for Roland to hear their shouts sounded. It seems that from the perspective of people's lives, this is a relatively normal world, and Roland expressed his peace of mind. As time went by, Roland got more and more information from people's conversations. But this information made Roland no longer calm down, because he heard many keywords that could judge the world: One Piece, Navy, Roger. What's the situation? Roland was a little confused. Turn off element perception first. As soon as the voice fell, all the messages began to fade like a tide, and the world returned to darkness and silence again. But Roland was not at peace, because he also had the skill of Predator. He always thought that this should be a magical land similar to the place Lemuru traveled through, where monsters and humans coexist. But why is this the world of One Piece? Although there are indeed many strange creatures in the world of One Piece, there is even a slime in Punk Hazard, but that is essentially Caesar's H25 poisonous gas. Moreover, comparing yourself with the other party, the style of painting is obviously wrong. Roland began to struggle with what attitude he should use to meet the future life. Although this problem can be solved by devouring a person and imitating a human form, as mentioned earlier, he still can't do it for the time being. In short, Roland said that he was a little flustered now. The state of confusion in his heart lasted for a while, and Roland finally came back to his senses. He knew very well that he couldn't keep panicking. After forcing himself to calm down, Roland finally found a reason to comfort himself. After all, no matter what, this is at least equivalent to an extra life. I really shouldn't complain too much. I can save possible future crises for future considerations. The most important task now is to let myself have the power to protect myself, so as not to be inexplicable the ground was eaten as jelly. Thinking of this, Roland turned on element perception again, and everything from the outside world reappeared in his mind. At this time, the little girl was still walking, and Roland was very curious about what she wanted to do. According to the situation in the world of One Piece, this should be a certain village on a certain island, and judging from the living conditions of the residents, it seems that it is not an island for research, and the possibility of being put into a culture tank is extremely low. Are you going to take me home? Keep me as a pet? Roland continued to speculate. I seem to be living a life of eating and dying, forget it, I'm a dignified slime. However, after a while, Roland found that the little girl had left the village, and the surrounding area was no longer a plain, but a small forest. Didn't you take me home? Roland became more and more confused. Could it be that you want to release me? By the way, why do I speak the word release so proficiently? However, Roland's attention was attracted when he sensed various animals in the forest. Although none of them were ferocious beasts, if he preyed on them all, he should have a little fighting power. As for whether predators have psychological pressure, the answer is obvious, no. Although I have been taught that life is equal, it is obvious that in most cases, the sentence except human beings should be added in front. Roland thought to himself, if one day he really accepted the fact that he was no longer human, would he start changing that premise to accept slimes? Of course, this will probably take a long time. After all, Roland still thinks the words not human are a bit unpleasant. While he was thinking wildly, the little girl had already moved on for quite a distance, and a small house suddenly appeared in his field of vision. In fact, it is not too small. In the world of One Piece, it can be regarded as an ordinary house. However, what Roland didn't notice was that the forest he thought was not a real forest. After all, almost all the trees in it were of the same kind, which were obviously planted by humans. Roland was so obediently carried by the little girl and walked into the house. Judging from the fact that she opened the door and entered without knocking, this should be her home, and her treatment at home is definitely different from Robin's. The furnishings in the house are very simple, they are all ordinary wooden furniture, the kind that can't match the rich people at all. Of course, what really attracted Roland's attention were the other two people in the room, one was also a little girl, and the other was slightly older, probably their mother. Looking at these two people, and then at the little girl who was holding him, Roland felt that his mind was a little stuck. It couldn't be such a coincidence, right? Chapter 4. And then, their conversation made Roland understand, it was such a coincidence. The mother-like person spoke first, "Are you back? Get ready for dinner, Nyokijo." N. Nyokijo nodded vigorously, then raised the light blue round creature in his hand, and said loudly, "Look! I found a strange thing." "What's this?" Another little girl, Nami, spoke, stood up from the chair, ran to Nyokijo, and stared at Roland with curiosity. "I don't know," Nyokijo shook his head, "but it can move. It's very comfortable to hold, I picked it up from the river." "Really?" Nami said and poked Roland lightly, "So soft, so interesting. It's cute, isn't it?" Nyokijo grinned and looked at Burmer-san, Do you know what this is? This. Burmer frowned, apparently not knowing about slimes. At this moment, Roland, who was being discussed by them, was still a little confused. What the hell, it's actually Nami and Nyoki-jo, this reincarnation is a bit of a mess. No wonder I always thought the little girl looked familiar. It turned out to be her, but I didn't recognize it. I'm really ashamed of being a C fan. However, after knowing this, Roland was not as panicked as before. After all, from the perspective of a C fan, isn't it a happy thing to meet Nami after traveling to the world of One Piece, although she is still a kid now, and she is just a slime. Moreover, from the point of view that Burmel is still alive, Eren has not yet appeared, and it will be at least 8 years before Luffy goes to sea. Of course, this has nothing to do with Roland for the time being. After all, he doesn't think he has the strength to be tough with Eren now. Although Eren is a character in the early stage, he is also the guy who made Luffy fight hard, so he must not be underestimated. After that, Roland's attention returned to the three of Nami, who were still talking at this time. Doesn't Belmerson know? Nami asked with a puzzled face. It was a little surprising that even Belmerson didn't know. In a child's world, elders always know everything. I really don't know, Burmer shook his head. However, it shouldn't be a creature on this island. Nyakajeo, you said you picked it up from the river, right? Well, Nyokijeo nodded. That's right, it must have floated from the sea, and I don't know which island it is. Belmel paused, and continued, it doesn't look like a creature afraid of water, it's better to put it back. Roland was speechless for a while. Big sister, are you crazy? I am afraid of water. However, those who don't know are innocent, he endured it. Why? Nyokijeo complained loudly, I want to keep it. It's so cute. That's right. Belmerson, we want to raise it. Nami also shouted. Even if you say that, Burmel smiled helplessly, we don't know what it will eat. If we keep it forcibly, it may starve to death. Don't worry, Nyokijeo grinned when he heard the words, look, it has no mouth. It definitely doesn't need to eat. Those who don't know are innocent, I will bear it. Roland comforted himself again. Burmer laughed out loud, there is no creature that does not need to eat. Orange trees need nutrients, let alone this little guy that looks like an animal. I don't care. I just want to raise it. Nyokijeo yelled, and Nami also nodded in agreement. At this time, she kept poking Roland. Okay, Burmer didn't want to spoil the little girl's interest, but she continued, but where do you want to lock it? Your own room. Nyokijeo shook her head, don't lock it up. Hey. Burmel looked puzzled, didn't you say it can move? Are you afraid it will run away? Don't worry about that too, Nyokijeo grinned again, it walks very slowly and looks silly, it can't run very far. Those who don't know have nothing. This is really unbearable. How am I stupid? Roland roared angrily, but unfortunately, he couldn't make a sound. After realizing this, he jumped from Nyokijeo's arms to the ground with all his strength, and quickly crawled towards the door. 5 seconds later. It's really slow. Ha ha ha. Nami laughed loudly. But this time, Roland couldn't refute any more. He had to admit that although he felt that he was climbing very fast, judging from the results he perceived, he wasn't crawling, he was just moving. However, there is no way around this, because slimes have no feet. However, compared to Nami's big laugh, Nyokijeo looked thoughtful. What's wrong? Belmer asked with some doubts when he noticed her strangeness. No, Nyokijeo shook his head, I don't know if it's an illusion, I always feel that it seems to understand our words, and it obviously didn't have this feeling just now, but suddenly it did when I got home. Would you like to try it? Burmer smiled and said to Roland, if you can understand me, please come to me. Roland thought for a while, this was a good opportunity to get rid of his stupid image, so he slowly moved towards Burmer. Can you really understand it? Burmer exclaimed in astonishment, what kind of creature are you? I'm a slime. Roland really wanted to answer her this way, but unfortunately, he really could only think about it. It seems that you can't make a sound, Burmer smiled, then I'll ask a few questions, and if what I said is right, you can nod. You can't seem to nod, then go forward, move forward if you can. Roland moved forward. Although he felt a little strange, he could still accept this strange feeling if he could communicate. After all, he didn't want to be treated as an ordinary pet. Nyokijo and Nami next to them were silent and did not speak, but the curiosity in their eyes was obvious. Burmer smiled, are you originally from this island? Roland didn't move. It really isn't, then did you float from the sea? Still didn't move. Isn't it? Did it come from the sky? Still didn't move. No? Then I really can't figure it out. Forget it, let's change the question. Do you need to eat? Roland moved forward, and then looked at Nyokijo. Sure enough, her expression was a little awkward, which made Roland feel a lot better. Chapter 5. However, Nyokijo's embarrassment only lasted for a while, and then he yelled, you obviously don't have a mouth. How do you eat? It must be a lie. Hearing this, Roland climbed directly to the wooden chair not far away, and then activated the predator skill. In the eyes of the three of Burmer, Roland's body suddenly spread out, covering the entire chair. When it returned to its original shape, the chair had disappeared, as if it had never existed. Seeing the astonished faces of the three of them, Roland felt complacent. As for the guardedness that he tried not to show his specialness just now, he had long since let go of the intimacy with Nami and the others from watching anime in his previous life. Ah! The chair is gone. Nami was the first to come back to her senses, her astonishment turned into anger, and she yelled, that's my chair. Spit it out and give it back to me. You bastard! Roland. Okay, don't be angry Nami, I'll make you a new chair later, Burmer comforted with a smile. Really? Nami raised her head and pouted. Really? Burmer nodded, and looked at Roland again, that means you eat everything. Roland didn't move. There were some things that he wouldn't eat even if he starved to death. Afterwards, she asked Roland several more questions, all of which were relatively simple but important, and Roland had no intention of hiding them, so she answered them all truthfully. Finally, Burmer asked, so are you going to stay with us? Roland moved forward. He had already thought about this point. Anyway, it is impossible for him to go to sea now, so he might as well stay here temporarily. Animals or something to improve their strength as soon as possible. Since you are willing to stay, then I agree, Burmer said with a slight smile. Yet, Nami and Nyokijo cheered directly. It seems that, at least from the first impression, Roland is considered qualified in their hearts. Although it is not his own character and ability, but his appearance as a slime, which makes him a little bit disappointed. Okay, let's have dinner first, it's cold, Burmer said and returned to the chair again. Dinner was already ready, and they were just waiting for Nyokijo to come back. The two cheered, but Nami only cheered for a while, her face froze. My chair is gone. It's all your fault. Bastard Ziobai. Wait a minute. Why is it called Ziobai? Nyokijo shouted, it's obviously blue, so it should be called Ziolan. But Ziolan doesn't sound good at all, Ziobai is better. Nami retorted. I don't care, I brought it back, and I must have named it. Let's call it Ziolan. Nyokijo was also not to be outdone. At this time, Roland, who was randomly placed on the floor, didn't know how to express his feelings. Two brats, can't you ask your own opinion, neither will work. Unfortunately, no one could hear his roar. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, Burmal lightly tapped each of Nami's heads. Stop arguing. Eat first. Yes. The two fell silent for a moment, and began to eat obediently. However, Burmal gave up his chair to Nami. As for Roland, he stood quietly on the floor. It wasn't that he liked the feeling of being a pet, but that the system suddenly rang again. The system visualization construction has been completed, and the function optimization will be carried out next. Activate system visualization mode. There is no need to hesitate, of course Roland chose yes. As soon as the words fell, a panel suddenly appeared in my mind. Although it was a bit abrupt, I didn't feel uncomfortable. Name, Roland. Race, slime. Mimic, not used. Unique skill, predator. Inherent skills, pain nullification, automatic regeneration, physical attack resistance, level dash. Additional skill, elemental perception. Just like when playing a game, there was a small question mark next to it. Roland clicked it imaginatively, and sure enough, a small window popped up again, with dense text introductions inside. The name is determined by the host and can be changed at any time. Race is system matched and cannot be changed. The mimicry ability is one of the branch abilities of Predator, which will be introduced in detail below. Unique skills are special skills given by the system, and there is only one for now, namely Predator. This skill has 5 branches, which are predation, analysis, storage, mimicry, and transformation. Predation refers to the inhalation of objects into the body, whether it is organic or inorganic, can become the target of activation. However, if the subject is conscious, the chances of success are greatly reduced. Analysis is the research and analysis of preyed objects, including object name, composition, structure and function, etc., and possible props can be generated from this, and when the material conditions are sufficient, they can also be copied. Storage, that is, the storage of predatory objects, can preserve both the original object before analysis and the product after analysis, and the object in storage will not be affected by time, and how to take out the host can be explored by yourself. Mimicry is to reproduce the predatory object and realize its ability. It can be full body mimicry or partial mimicry. However, it can only mimic the successfully analyzed object. Transformation, for the bad product after analysis, or the object that cannot be analyzed, it can be converted into pure energy, and the conversion time will vary depending on the object. Call. Seeing this, Roland paused for the time being and heaved a long sigh of relief. He finally figured out what his predator was capable of. Although there were some slight discrepancies, it was similar to what he had imagined. In this way, the ways to become stronger that I thought about before can be practiced one by one. However, Roland really didn't expect to be able to partially imitate, but it's a pity that he can't try it now. It would be a crime to scare Nami and the others. After that, Roland continued to look down. Inherent skills are the slime's own attributes. There are many types, but they all need to be activated by the host. The activation method is to go through it once. For example, being burned by a fire can activate the flame resistance. Among them, the resistance attribute has a level, and when it bears the corresponding adverse effect exceeding the level, it will be damaged. There is a small question mark after this sentence. Roland clicked on it and saw a bunch of denser level introductions. Roland took a rough look and came to a conclusion: if you don't die, you won't die. Additional skills, this is a skill that needs to be discovered by the host. When it is recognized by the system, it will become an additional skill, and then the system will assist the host to launch such skills. For other content, please wait for the system to be further optimized. The introduction part is over here, and Roland has finally figured out his own position, a slime who can only activate skills. Well, it feels like the future looks bright. Chapter 6. It's night, the full moon hangs high. On the beach, feeling the sea breeze blowing in front of him, looking at the stars and the bright moon above his head, Roland couldn't help but feel a little bit emotional. This is the first night he saw after coming to another world. To be honest, it doesn't seem to be any different than on Earth. At this time, Nami and the others were already asleep, as were the villagers in the town. After all, it was only a relatively backward town, and there was no such thing as nightlife here. So, why did Roland lament his life at the beach? The reason is simple, because he discovered a cruel fact: slimes don't need to sleep. This long night, if there is no need to sleep, Roland has no interest in going through it without moving, so he left Nami's house. However, as mentioned earlier, the villagers were also resting, and he couldn't find a place to play, so he walked to the seaside without knowing it. Although there is no one here, but fortunately the moonlight is bright, and the silver light is shining between the waves, which is not beautiful. In addition, the visual effect brought by elemental perception is very different from that of human eyes, so Roland will not be too boring. After watching for a while, he finally came to his senses. Now is not the time to stand here in a daze. Because there is no way to ask Nami and the others for the time being, and he doesn't know what time it is, so naturally he doesn't know when Aaron will appear. But there is one thing he is clear about: in such a situation where accidents may happen at any time, he must improve his strength as soon as possible. After all, it would be fine if they didn't meet Nami and the others, but since they met, how could it be possible to watch Belle-Emile get killed in front of his eyes, especially now that I have a good impression of them? Having said that, in any case, I am just a slime, and there are no powerful animals to prey on here, so it is still a bit difficult to become stronger quickly. Looking at the vast ocean, Roland suddenly had an idea. If there is still time before Aaron's attack, he might try going out to sea. There is no shortage of powerful creatures in One Piece. But how does slime go to sea? Although it won't drown, but without hands and feet, it can't move in the sea. Apart from being eaten by a certain sea creature, it seems that there is no other ending. No. It seems that you can't move. Roland suddenly realized an important thing. Isn't Lemuru also able to move freely in the water? How did he do it? Roland muttered in his mind. It seems that he preyed on all the water in his body, and then sprayed it out forcefully. Thinking of this, Roland got a little excited, and hurriedly walked towards the sea. Of course, it was only at the very edge, and it would be bad if he was swept in by the waves. After activating the predation skill against the seawater, Roland could feel that the surrounding seawater was rapidly gathering into his body, and then disappeared strangely, being stored in a place similar to a stomach pouch. After that, Roland tried to release the seawater from his body. He had already learned about the removal process of this system for him to explore by himself. But learning is one thing, mastering it is another. Due to the sudden ejection of too much seawater, the driving force generated was very strong, and the slime's body was quite light, so Roland was directly sent flying by the recoil force. Fortunately, the ejection was towards the sea, he just hit the sand. However, because of pain sensation ineffective, he didn't feel anything when he fell hard. Instead, it was the system prompt that suddenly sounded that caught his attention. Learn the additional skill hydraulic propulsion. Excited, Roland returned to the beach again. With the blessing of the system, it was different. It was as if he suddenly had more knowledge about how to master water spraying skills in his mind. He flashed back and forth on the water, having a great time playing. After that, let's play. Tired from practicing, Roland returned to the beach and began to think about other possible additional skills. Since you can spray water, it should be okay to try skills like the water spray gun, right? Roland thought so. After all, if his water gun can reach the same strength as Jinbei's Murloc karate, then a guy like Aaron can kill him in one hit. However, this time, things were not as simple as he imagined. Although he can control the size of the spout and the amount of water sprayed out, the water sprayed out in this way is exactly the same as a toy water gun, and it is completely non-aggressive. He tried to increase the size of the nozzle, and spewed out more seawater in one breath. This time the effect was better. A small hole was made on the beach, which looked decent, but in fact it was not very powerful. After that, he constantly adjusted the size of the spout and the amount of water, and the power changed from time to time. It's a pity that it was not recognized by the system in the end, and no additional skills were obtained. Moreover, Roland also understands that even if it is the best time, that kind of strength is at best used to bully children, and it is too funny to use it to fight against the enemy, especially in this world of One Piece, where the fighting power is over the top. Really tired from practicing, Roland rested on the beach, and was accidentally swept in by the waves. However, with the ability to move in the water, he didn't panic anymore, and he leisurely felt the feeling of being surrounded by sea water. To be honest, if you think about falling into the water with a relaxed mood, it's more like taking a bath, which is quite comfortable. Because the skill of element perception has been turned on all the time, Roland can perceive that there are many small fish swimming around him. However, Roland had no intention of preying on them. If it was just the beginning, he might have thought of mimicking a small fish to move in the water, but now that he knew that his body could also move freely in the water, he would completely dispel this idea. After all, it's normal for big fish to eat small fish, especially in this world of One Piece, where there are so many huge sea kings living nearby. If you pretend to be a small fish, the probability of being eaten is not small. It is better to be a slime honestly and treat yourself as water without looking carefully. The probability of being eaten should be much lower. Then, on a whim, Roland deliberately sprayed water slowly in a certain direction of his body. Sure enough, his body successfully moved in the water. Although the speed of this movement was relatively slow, it was easier than water pressure propulsion. With more control, you can move more freely. And the system sounded very cooperatively. Learn the additional skill water flow movement. In this way, Roland is more confident about his journey to the sea. He usually uses the water flow to move forward, and when encountering emergencies, he uses water pressure to rush to speed up his escape, and he doesn't need to breathe. Perfect. Chapter 7. After resting for a while, Roland continued his practice. This time, he changed his mind a bit, and instead of controlling the nozzle, he tried to pressurize the inside of the cylinder and hit a small amount of water. In other words, what is ejected is not only seawater, but also gas that is the driving force of the water flow. Unexpectedly, the result this time was very impressive. A little seawater spurted out like a bamboo shoot and hit the beach, forming a deep pit, which was much more powerful than before. It seems successful. Roland chuckled a little, but the system's voice didn't sound. It seems that for offensive additional skills, the system requirements may be relatively high. However, there were no other important matters anyway, so while the feeling was still there, Roland stepped up to practice. In addition to trying to adjust the diameter of the nozzle and the pressure of the gas again, Roland also considered whether the water could be rotated faster to further increase the power. On top of this, Roland even tried to make fine adjustments to the shape of the spout. If the pressure is not enough, increasing the sharpness of the water flow seems to be another way. After all, the attack of water is not only impact, but also cutting. Try to make the shape of the water as thin and flat as possible, coupled with the ability to rotate, just like moving forward with a simulated disc rotating at high speed. Roland just practiced so hard. At a certain moment, the water spewed out in a disc shape, and with an afterimage, it spun rapidly and landed on the sand. It cut in silently and then flew out not far away, rushing into the sky, killing Roland. Startled. Is this cutting the sand directly? Roland guessed in surprise, and at the same time, the sound of the system finally sounded. Learn the additional skill water jet cutting. Unknowingly, the sky is already light. Although he didn't feel tired physically, after all he had practiced all night, he was still a bit tedious psychologically. Roland simply gave up the idea of continuing to practice and went back to Burmer's house first. He had just left the sea and hadn't moved forward for a while. Feeling his moving speed, Roland was very dissatisfied. He tried to spray some water under his body. After the water collided with the ground, there was a lot of impact, which directly made him fly up. When he landed again, he had already advanced quite a distance. Roland nodded in his heart, very good. In this case, how can Yokijo and Nami laugh at him for walking slowly? In this way, with a happy mood, Roland hurried towards Burmer's house. When we got there, the sky was not completely bright yet, but we could already see the smoke curling up from the house. It should be Burmer preparing breakfast, right? It seems that it is really not easy to take care of two children. Roland went straight back to the living room, and used the recoil of the water to jump onto the chair. Finally, he didn't have to stay on the ground all the time. Roland was a little moved. With nothing else to do for the time being, Roland couldn't help thinking about his future plans. Oh! Ziobai! Are you waiting for me? Suddenly, a loud shout interrupted his train of thought. It was Nami. How's that possible? You're obviously waiting for me. Also, didn't I tell you? His name is Ziolan. Nyokijo's voice followed closely behind. I don't care. Anyway, his name is Ziobai. Nami continued to shout. I brought him back. The name should follow me. Nyokijo was naturally not to be outdone. Then, early in the morning, the two little girls argued about what Roland should be called. As for Roland, he listened quietly from the side. Although he really wanted to tell them that his name was Roland, it was a pity that he had no choice. At first, he thought that maybe he could communicate with them by writing on the ground with water, but soon, he realized that this method would not work at all. Although I can understand their words, but after listening carefully, they speak Japanese, and I don't know Japanese at all. It may be because of the help of the system that he could understand the meaning of their words, but he couldn't write it out at all, so he had to give up this idea. Okay, you two stop arguing, hurry up and get ready for breakfast. Burmer's shout interrupted their argument and brought Roland back to his senses. There must be a way for the car to reach the front of the mountain. It's useless to think too much now, let's take a step and see. In the woods near the village. At this time, Roland was walking alone inside. Sensing the small animals around him that had absolutely no meaning of predation, Roland couldn't help recalling what happened just now. After the three of Burmel had breakfast, Nami and Yokijo played with Roland for a while. After that, Nami wanted to read a book, and Nyakigao wanted to go to the orange grove with Burmer to learn how to take care of oranges, so they both left. Leaving Roland alone at home with a slime. What kind of pet is this? Roland sighed and continued to walk. Of course, he was just making complaints. If Nami and the others really kept him as a pet, he might feel even more irritated. On the way, although he didn't meet any stronger animals worth preying on, Roland was not idle. There are many different kinds of flowers and plants here. Although not all of them are useful, occasionally you will come across some useful herbs. Then, Roland took the opportunity to practice the ability to systematically reprocess the prey, and obtain some healing medicine or poison. To be honest, this process is very simple. After all, he hardly needs to do anything, as long as he orders in his heart, he can hand over all the work to the system. Although this system is lifeless and not very good at talking, its functions are actually quite powerful. Every time he thought of this, Roland would feel more confident about his future. However, Roland didn't understand the last skill of Predator, transformation. Because, when something is successfully transformed, all he gets is a cold transformation successful from the system. As for the pure energy formed after the agreed transformation, it seems that it doesn't exist at all. In this regard, Roland can only attribute it to the fact that the things he transformed are too low level and contain no energy at all. Just thinking about something and eating all kinds of things indiscriminately, Roland gradually walked into the depths of the grove. At a certain moment, he suddenly stopped, finally met an interesting guy. I saw, not far in front of him, there was a pitch-black snake looking at him. The snake stammered, as if it had already spotted Roland. It was the first time to observe a creature like a snake at such a close distance and in detail. Looking at the opponent's hard and sharp scales, and the snake's eyes glowing with cold light, Roland suddenly hesitated. He might not be able to defeat the opponent. Chapter 8. However, Roland could not afford to regress now. After all, while he was treating the opponent as a target, the opponent also regarded him as a prey, threatening him with his sight. Although he was a little flustered, Roland couldn't help but feel relieved when he thought that he had just learned an additional offensive skill. Perhaps he was still wondering what kind of creature he was, but the other party was staring at this side motionless. It was rare to have such a good opportunity, so Roland didn't hesitate anymore, and shot the water knife directly at the head of the black snake, and because he was too nervous, he used all his strength. Call out! There was a sound of piercing through the air, and the water knife directly cut through the air, flying towards the head of the black snake with an afterimage. Puff! There was a soft sound. Before Roland could react, the water knife had already chopped off the black snake's head. But it didn't stop, but continued to fly behind the black snake, directly chopped on the trunk of the big tree, passed through it easily, and continued to fly forward. This. Roland was a little confused, his skill seemed to be stronger than expected. It's no wonder that I've been practicing on the beach, and it's really hard to judge the lethality of the water jet. The visual impact of this bloody scene is relatively large. Moreover, the most important thing is that the water consumption of a water knife is less than a cup of water, and at least several tons of seawater have been stored in his body, so even if he uses the skill thousands of times, he doesn't need to worry about the amount of water stored. Roland is a little swollen, maybe he is actually very strong? However, Roland calmed down again when he thought of the fact that the fight between Aokiji and Akainu created an ice and fire island. Compared with the monsters in One Piece, he was actually far behind. After that, Roland walked slowly towards the black snake's body, but he did not forget his original purpose. After preying on it and analyzing it, Roland finally felt the power of the predator skill. First of all, I have the ability to mimic a black snake. Although it is not strong in terms of the fact that it is instantly killed by a water knife, it is still stronger than ants and lizards. Secondly, by analyzing Black Snake's ability, Roland also acquired several skills along the way. Learn the additional skill Heat Source Sensing, which can sense the surrounding heat sources after it is turned on. Activate the inherent skill Venom Generation, which can secrete venom in the body by itself. After preying on such an ordinary black snake, he obtained two powerful skills, and Roland's idea of continuing to explore became stronger. During the subsequent journey, relying on the increasing skills, Roland eliminated many powerful enemies and gained various abilities. Some of these abilities are useless, while others are quite interesting. For example, the sticky silk obtained from the spider directly turned Roland into a Spider-Man, which is very convenient for traveling in places like the forest where it can be attached everywhere. There is also the ultrasonic wave obtained from the bat, which was originally used for positioning, but the system seems to have strengthened it, with the ability to distract the opponent. However, this is not the point is the vocal organs. Roland used mimicry to reproduce the organs that can emit ultrasound. He had this idea before, but he suffered from the fact that the vocal organs of other animals are too different from humans. After half a day of exploration and practice, Roland was finally able to make a voice close to that of a human. Of course, the tone and the like were very strange. However, since it can make a sound, as long as it is constantly adjusted, it can always be the same as the human vocal cords. Now, it's just a matter of learning Japanese. Thanks to the help of the system, I can understand the meaning of what everyone said, so it should be easy to learn, right? Before I knew it, the sky had already darkened. Speaking of it, it might be because Slime has no stomach at all, and Roland has never felt hungry. Of course, it is also possible that the energy he needs is not much, and those animals or plants that he prey on, in addition to being analyzed and used by him, also provide him with energy by the way. Or it is the pure energy obtained by predator transformation that I can't feel is working. However, this is not the point. The point is that now Roland is not hungry at all. Even after exploring for a whole day, he still feels energetic. Having said that, Roland gave up his plan to continue exploring, but rushed towards Bermer's house. At this time, the three of them had already returned from Bellemer's house. When approaching the house, Roland heard Nyokijeo's crying voice, "It's bad. Belmerson. Xylan really disappeared. I can't find it no matter how hard I look." Nami's voice was also anxious. "If I knew it earlier, I would have taken it with me to read a book, I shouldn't have left it here alone." Compared to them, Bermel is much calmer. "Don't worry, your Mr. Pet understands what we say, he promised to stay here yesterday, he will definitely not leave so suddenly, maybe it's just hang out somewhere, and I'll be back in a while." Really? The emotions of Nami and Nyokijeo eased a little. In this case, it was naturally impossible for Roland to continue listening outside, so he quickly walked into the house. Sure enough, at this time, Nami and Nyokijeo were looking at the door with red eyes, while Bermer was stroking their heads and comforting them. Seeing him appearing at the door, the two little girls grinned, ran over quickly, and hugged him tightly. Feeling the feeling of being hugged, to be honest, Roland was really touched. He had only known each other for 2 days, and he left his own slime at home alone in the morning, but it was obvious that they really liked it. Myself. Although this kind of liking might just be the kind of liking for pets, Roland is too lazy to study it carefully. After all, no matter what, if the object of liking is himself, that's enough. Roland's determination to protect them became stronger, as well as his determination to talk to them. After that, Nami and Roland played for a while, and they were ready to have dinner. By the way, Roland took Nami's chair out of his stomach and gave it back to her, because he didn't analyze the chair, and the chair was still the same at this time. This made Nami so happy, she hugged Roland again and cheered. While they were having dinner, Roland returned to the ground. Looking at the three of them, he was once again entangled. He was really reluctant to leave this warm feeling, but if he didn't go out to sea and prey on more powerful creatures, how could he protect Nami and the others? Although, even if he doesn't go to sea, he still has the ability to improve himself, such as thinking of more skills like water knives, but he has no idea about skills. Chapter 9. Moreover, Roland was very suspicious. With the skills he came up with, could he really deal with opponents of Aaron's level? However, it's useless to worry about these things now. After all, I don't have the ability to go to sea for the time being. Although I'm not afraid of water anymore, I can't judge the direction in the vast sea at all. Roland simply stopped thinking about it and lived a good life. At night, he left Bermer's house again, but this time he didn't go to the beach, but went to the woods. With skills such as element perception, heat source sensing, and ultrasonic positioning, night was not the same as daytime for him. No difference. Roland was exploring new skills, and before he knew it, the second day of his trip to another world passed. In the days that followed, his life almost always maintained this regularity. During the day, he explored the forest or accompanied Nami and Nakajeo, and occasionally went to the town to learn Japanese from the daily conversations of the villagers. Hidden places to explore new abilities on your own. On the 5th day of life in a different world, Roland was able to make a sound that was almost the same as a human vocal cord, and he also learned the most basic greetings. Good morning, Nami. This morning, as soon as Nami woke up, she heard a greeting. The voice sounded more masculine, completely different from Nyokijeo and Bermel. She yelled in confusion, "Who's talking?" "Me," Roland said while jumping a few times in front of Nami, trying to attract her attention. Ah! Unexpectedly, Nami suddenly yelled and ran out. What's the situation? Roland was a little confused. Did he scare her? This is different from what I thought. He quickly followed out. Soon, he heard Nami's shout from the living room, it's bad. Nyakajao. Belmerson. Ziobai can talk. What? Nyokijao also exclaimed, really? Really? Nami replied loudly, with an excited face, it just greeted me. It's amazing. I've known it's not an ordinary creature for a long time, didn't I expect to be able to talk? Burmer's voice was still as calm as ever, presumably he had seen many weird creatures when he was in the navy. Let's go. Take me there. I want to talk to Xiolan too. Nyokijao said excitedly. It's Ziobai. It's Xiolan. At this time, Roland had already walked into the living room. Seeing that the three of them were all looking at him, he couldn't help saying softly, how are you guys? You really talked. Nyokijao cheered and ran towards Roland. After picking up Roland, a series of questions popped out of her mouth. Little Lan. Why are you suddenly able to speak? Did you just learn it? How did you learn it? Do you have any other great abilities? Also, what kind of creature are you? Belmer has never seen it before. For these questions, Roland really wanted to answer her one by one, but unfortunately, his Japanese level is limited, so after holding back for a long time, Roland choked out a sentence. Good morning, Nyokijao. 8th day. Although the island in Nami's hometown is not small, it is not big either, and a large part of it has been developed by the villagers. So, after only a few days of exploration, Roland finished the forest, went straight through it, and reached the seaside on the other side of the island. During the period, although some relatively powerful beasts were found, after he killed them with a single water knife, Roland realized that this kind of power was only relative to ordinary people. However, it was not without gains. By preying on these creatures, in addition to imitation, he also obtained various fixed skills or additional skills. The more useful ones include sharp teeth, tear, jump enhancement, color camouflage, split, direction sensing and so on. Since there was nothing worth exploring in the forest, Roland decided to spend more time learning the language, that is to say, visiting the town more. By the way, since he occasionally followed Nami or Nyokijao to the street, the residents of the town now know that Roland is a little pet kept by the Burmer family. They also knew that this was a talking pet. Although it seemed that he was still learning and only knew some simple expressions, everyone didn't mind teaching Roland a few words when he was in a good mood. 10th day. Blacksmith's house in the village. While he wasn't paying attention, Roland secretly preyed on an iron sword. After analyzing it, he directly obtained the ability to copy the iron sword. Then, while he was not paying attention, Roland preyed on some iron ore again, and directly produced two identical iron swords from this raw material. Although it is just an ordinary iron sword, it means that the replication ability of the system is indeed reliable, and Roland is becoming more and more clear about the road ahead. Of course, Roland didn't eat for free. Since he preyed on a sword and some iron ore from others, he returned the two newly formed swords to him. This process is still going on quietly. I am already special enough, so it is better not to show more magical abilities. Moreover, this is also a whole card, and it is always a good thing to hide it carefully. Number 11 days. Roland was inspired by yesterday's incident, and went to the clothing store to repeat the trick, eating a piece of clothing and some fabrics. With so many perception skills, no one would be able to detect this kind of thing. However, this time the situation is a little different from yesterday. The ability to replicate does not produce exactly the same clothes, but various styles of clothes. Of course, the premise is that Roland can think of the style in his heart, and there must be enough materials in his stomach. Roland had some guesses in his mind and went to the shoe store again. The result was the same as the clothes. It was not limited to the style of the shoes that were preyed on, but all kinds of styles were available. From this, Roland also roughly understood that it might be more difficult to obtain offensive-type additional skills, just as offensive-type additional skills are more difficult to obtain, while life-type ones are very simple and have almost no restrictions. In this way, Roland found that he had another choice for the future. Maybe it would be good to open a clothing store? Number 16 days. This time it was at the library in the village, where Roland and Nami read books together. Speaking of this, I have to mention another weirdness of the system, just like being able to understand what others say without knowing Japanese. He obviously doesn't know the meaning of the characters in the book, and he can't write them out, but can understand its meaning. In this regard, Roland can only say that the system is awesome. Chapter 10. However, thanks to the ability of the system, Roland's Japanese level is basically basic now, and he has no problem in daily communication, and he is gradually getting acquainted with the residents of the entire town. At this time, in the library, Roland was of course not here to read, but to accompany Nami to read. During this period, through communicating with Nami, Roland finally learned the exact time now. At this time, Nami was only 8 years old. Although I don't know the exact day when Eren came, Nami was 10 years old at that time, that is to say, there are still about 2 years left. Thinking about it this way, there is actually plenty of time. Moreover, for such a long time, if you spend all of it on this small island, your own improvement will definitely be much smaller than going outside to explore. After all, to be honest, he is almost at the bottleneck now. The offensive skills that he can think of and can be recognized by the system, in addition to the water knife at the beginning, he has derived water guns, water cannons, sand knives, and sand knives from this. Pow, etc., but for the subsequent skills, he couldn't think of the direction for a while. Then there are the skills obtained through predation. In addition to the skills like sharp teeth that must be partially mimicked to function, there is another one that has changed the most is the sticky silk skill. Originally, it could only produce soft silk like a spider's web, but now, as long as there are other materials, he can produce various kinds of silk including iron wire, some of which are very sharp, and can also be counted as a kind of attack ability. The idea of going out to sea has been determined, the basic self-protection ability is already established, and the skill direction sensing can be used to determine the direction. There is no problem in moving in the sea. Apart from the reluctance in my heart, it seems that there is nothing to stop me from leaving. Roland decided to find an opportunity to say goodbye to Nami and the others. Number 20 days. Roland still didn't leave, mainly because he was familiar with Nami and the others, and the feeling of reluctance was really strong. Moreover, according to Burmer, the orange tree seems to be about to bear fruit, which may be a reason for himself. Roland suddenly wants to do an experiment to see if the system can improve the varieties of Burmer's oranges. After all, if the quality of her oranges improves, the sales problem will be solved, and the family will have money. In that case, even if Eren came early and she hadn't come back, or something happened to her, she would still be able to hand over the money without being killed. Roland had forgotten that Burmer had been in the navy after all, so even if he was rich, he probably wouldn't succumb to Eren who was a pirate. Number 20 for 3 days. Early this morning, at the seaside, Roland found a broken ship floating from the sea, which may have been shipwrecked or abandoned. Although the ship was very broken and it was only a small triangular sailboat, Roland preyed on it without hesitation. Then parse. Very good, there is another profession, shipwright. And he is the kind of super shipbuilder who can build a ship in seconds as long as he has materials. By the way, the kind of reproduction that any style of sailboat can make. Because Roland also preyed on many trees when he was in the forest, now he has enough materials, so he directly built a new boat. The boat is not big, just like the small boats used by fishermen in the town, but at the stern of the boat, Roland specially designed a small circular door that can be closed and closed. He can use this small hole in case of emergency. And the skill water pressure propulsion to control the ship. Moreover, compared to the simple boats of the fishermen, Roland's boat looks very gaudy. Looking at this exquisite boat, Roland felt a little helpless. How could I accidentally build the ideal ship in my heart? Now, apart from Burmer's oranges, he really couldn't find a reason to stay. As for the dissatisfaction with Nami and the others, this does not constitute a reason. After all, if you really care about them, you will have to go to sea. Roland actually understands this kind of thing very well, but it is a bit difficult to accept, so he keeps looking for reasons. Number 25 days. The tree doesn't consider Slime's thoughts, it just grows quietly. Therefore, no matter how unwilling he was, Roland had to accept the fact that the orange tree had already begun to grow oranges. Although it was still young, it was enough for experimentation. Moreover, after being self-willed for so long, Roland also knew that he could no longer deceive himself. He was just afraid of the unknown. If he really wanted to achieve his goal, he had to overcome this fear. Afterwards, Roland went to the orange orchard. Of course, he did not tell Burmer and Nami about it. If they saw that he was wasting the oranges, the consequences might be a bit serious. After preying on an unremarkable orange, Roland immediately analyzed it. However, it is a pity that things cannot always go as expected. Through analysis, all Roland got was a glass of bitter orange juice. Although this plan failed, Roland was not too disappointed. It was a dispensable thing in the first place, and there was no need to be too sad if he couldn't get it. Moreover, at worst, he would just hurry back when the time came. Now that he had made up his mind, Roland didn't delay any longer, and quickly left the orange orchard, and ran to say goodbye to Nami and the others. At this time, because it was still relatively early, the three of them were at home. The process of saying goodbye was not easy. After all, Roland felt sorry for them, and Nami and the others felt the same for him. However, as mentioned earlier, Roland was worried that if he stayed any longer, he might not even want to leave. Therefore, Roland spent half a day talking with them on the grounds of finding his hometown, and vowed that he would come back again, and finally accomplished this difficult goal. Fearing that he would think of any excuses again, Roland hurried to the beach, took out the boat, checked the various resources in his stomach, and set sail after confirming that they were correct. Want to ask how Slime sailed? Think for yourself. By the way, the direction sensing skill obtained by Roland senses a different direction from that on Earth. Although it also uses a magnetic field for sensing, it can also sense the location of nearby islands in addition to the south, east, north, and west. Moreover, according to the strength of the magnetic field, you can also judge which island is close to you and which is far away from you. After reaching the sea, seeing the small island getting farther and farther away from him, Roland felt a little bit reluctant at first. However, after seeing the vast sea full of infinite possibilities, this kind of reluctance has been diluted a lot, and it has a little more expectation and curiosity. Unfortunately, after sailing for half a day without encountering any storms, sea kings, or pirate ships, Roland suddenly felt that sailing, so boring. Chapter 11. The blue sea is vast and sparkling, and the blue sky is dotted with a few white clouds, pure and vast. However, Roland was not in the mood to pay attention to the magnificent beauty of nature. After all, no matter how beautiful the scenery is, if you have seen it for a day, you will get tired of it. This is the 20th day of Roland's career in another world, and he has been advancing on the sea for a day and a night. No other ships were encountered, neither pirate ships nor merchant ships. There were no strong winds or waves. Although it rained suddenly in the middle of the night last night, it was not heavy and had no effect on the sailing. The same is true at other times, with occasional bumps but not severe. As for the Neptunes, even though they encountered them, they probably felt that their boat was not enough to fit their teeth, so it just ignored them. However, that huge body gave Roland a strong visual impact and desire to pray. If he hadn't been sane, he might have pounced on the opponent directly. After analyzing such a huge body, he would definitely get some unexpected good things. Of course, there is another reason why Roland didn't pay attention to the beautiful scenery. The source of the strongest magnetic field sensed in his mind was already very close, which meant that he was about to arrive at the second island of his career in another world. Although the East China Sea is the sea area where the pirates are weakest, it does not mean that there are no powerful creatures in the islands of the East China Sea. This is also the purpose of Roland going to sea, to find the powerful existence on the island, and then eat them. After sailing for a certain distance, I could already see the island. I mimicked the wings of a bat and flew into the air to have a look. This is a very vast island, and all the places I can see are endless stretches of emerald green forest. It looks like a primeval forest. I hope to gain something, Roland said in a low voice as he slowly flew back to the boat. Sure enough, no other ships were encountered, and Roland landed directly on the island. He intended to explore directly from one side of the island to the other and continue sailing, so he stored the boat in his stomach. Regarding this point, Roland occasionally feels a little bit emotional. Sometimes this predatory ability is like a storage space, which is quite convenient. Starting from the beach, Roland walked forward. Not far away is a dense forest. The huge and staggered canopy is like a giant umbrella supporting the sky, and the overlapping branches merge into an endless sea of green trees. Standing next to the giant tree in the front, Roland took a deep breath and walked towards the slightly dim forest. Uninhabited island. Here I come. When Roland explored this second island of career in another world with excitement, he didn't know that this is not an uninhabited island at all. Moreover, there are not only people here, but also a bustling town. However, because the area of this island is quite extensive, and most of the area is covered by the huge forest that Roland just saw in the sky, which ordinary people would not set foot in, so ships that know the situation will not dock here. On the other side of the island, there is a small town. Of course, if it is compared with Kokozia village where Nami is located, it is simply a first-tier big city. As far as Kokozia village is concerned, before Aaron occupied it, there were almost no outsiders in the village except for the simple villagers. It is the village most like an ordinary village in the world of One Piece. It is precisely because of this that Roland has never realized that he has not really felt how big the gap between the world of One Piece and the world of his previous life is. This Salvi town on Salvi Island is different. As a well-known town in the East China Sea, there is a large enough flow of people here. Whether it's business travelers, pirates who burn and loot, or the navy that upholds justice, as well as pirate hunters, tourists, etc., all kinds of people commute to and from this island, making this town prosperous. Of course, these have nothing to do with Roland for the time being. At this time, Roland still regarded this place as an uninhabited island, and was full of anticipation and vigilance, trying to explore the vast forest. It's not bad, it's a primeval forest, it's just different from that small forest, Roland sighed with great satisfaction after preying on another 2-meter-tall beast that looked a bit like a tiger. Let's analyze it, Roland said silently in his heart, and waited quietly. After a while, the system voice rang. Xiashuodhu, one of the tiger creatures unique to Salvi Island, has a strong and tough body. Compared with other similar species, its advantage lies in its strong jumping ability. If it is decomposed and processed, tiger skin, tiger meat, tiger blood, and great tonics can be obtained. In terms of skills, the additional skill bouncing enhancement upgrade, the additional skill sharp teeth upgrade, the inherent skill physical attack resistance upgrade. Physical attributes are strengthened. Roland has long been familiar with analysis and reprocessing. As for the skill upgrade, he only learned about it after preying on a grey wolf that was similar to the one in the forest near Nami's house, but much stronger. Can upgrade. However, it may be because he is too strong, Roland has never met an opponent who can push himself to the limit, so he doesn't feel much about this upgrade. In other words, even if he felt it, he couldn't feel how big the improvement was. Of course, he will still try out some more important skills, such as the skill Venom Generation, which is an inherent skill he acquired a long time ago. At the beginning, although the secretion is also venom, the toxicity of the venom can only play a role when it is injected into the animal body, causing the opponent to slowly die of nerves. But now, in addition to secreting the above-mentioned venom, you can also strengthen the poison yourself and secrete a powerful corrosive venom. If it is a relatively weak animal, if Roland sprays it casually, the opponent will directly become a disgusting turbid substance, which is very scary. However, because the visual impact is a bit strong, and he can't pray after being corroded, Roland didn't use it again after using it once. However, in any case, it is a good thing that the skill upgrade has made one's combat effectiveness stronger again. Finally, there is this physical attribute. Roland has heard this hint several times. However, he looked and looked at the entire system interface, but still couldn't find anything similar to this term. In the end, Roland could only attribute him to the fact that the system hadn't been perfected yet. After all, he remembered that the system had said before that it was still being optimized, maybe it was optimizing things in this area. However, for these, he can only rely on guesswork. Who makes his own system a boring bottle? There is no way. Chapter 12. However, even if you don't know what it is, it doesn't seem to be useful for the time being, but Roland believes that the system will not make something useless for no reason. Moreover, the word strengthen sounded reassuring to Slime, and Roland didn't mind strengthening himself more. After analyzing the prey, Roland stepped forward again. At this time, Roland's exploration journey had been going on for half a day, and the sky had already darkened. But, slimes don't need to sleep. Moreover, Roland itself has a lot of sensory skills, and there is no difference between night and day. In addition, he explored the small forest in Kokosia village day and night. At the same time, Roland's idea of becoming stronger is more urgent, and he hopes to go back and reunite with Nami and the others soon. Therefore, although the sky was dark, he had no intention of resting, but continued to explore. By the way, in the past half a day, although the creatures encountered were similar to those in Kokosia village, they were all killed by myself with a water knife. However, at least from the size, Roland can feel that as he goes deeper, the creatures he encounters are getting stronger. In the beginning, they were all small animals, and Roland didn't even have the desire to prey on them. However, it didn't take long for normal 1-meter level beasts to appear. And with the appearance of the Xiaoshuo German tiger just now, the world of 2-meter level creatures also opened the door to Roland. Undoubtedly, there will definitely be 3-meter or even 4-meter level existences in the future. Thinking of the repeated refresh of the definition of giant in the world of One Piece, as well as various bizarre and magical creatures, Roland is looking forward to the future exploration. If you explore the deepest part of the forest, maybe there will be more surprises. Time flies, and before you know it, Roland's forest exploration trip has passed another 3 days. The gains of these 3 days can be said to be joys and sorrows. The joy is that I got a lot of new skills, and most of the original skills have been upgraded, and the physical attributes have been strengthened again and again. However, the current situation is that he basically can't get new skills. After all, he has activated too many skills, which almost include all kinds of characteristics of normal animals. Moreover, not to mention new skills, even improving the original skills has become very difficult. Roland has not heard the system prompt about skill upgrades for a long time. The same is true for the strengthening of physical attributes. After analysis, this sentence no longer exists. The system won't explain it, and Roland can only guess the reason. If he analyzes it from the perspective of the game, it may be because he has raised the level too high, causing the experience provided by the existing monsters to become zero. Thinking about it this way, it seems quite reasonable, Roland felt convinced by himself. On the other hand, Roland was actually a little annoyed with predation. After all, to be honest, when killing these creatures, because of the characteristics of the water jet cutting skill, the screen was very bloody. Although, it may be because he has become a slime, or because he is used to it, Roland does not have much nausea and vomiting. Of course, even if he wants to vomit, there is nothing he can do. Stomach that spits out. However, Roland was already tired of killing like this without gaining anything. Unfortunately, the direction sensing skill couldn't tell Roland where he was on the island, so he couldn't judge how he could leave the fastest, so he could only continue to follow the originally planned direction. However, he decided to temporarily stop predation, unless he encountered a powerful creature worth preying on, which would also increase his speed. By the way, there is another point that Roland is also very unhappy, that is, he has not encountered a devil fruit. Such a large forest is full of infinite possibilities, can't see a devil fruit, this is too wrong. At a certain moment, an empty area suddenly appeared in front of him. It is surrounded by dense forests, and in the middle is a circular grassland. In the middle of the grassland is a big tree that is much taller than the other trees around it. Moreover, unlike other places where wild beasts roared from time to time, the surroundings here were quiet and looked very peaceful. However, the so-called abnormality must have a demon. Roland, who has rich experience in games and novels, knows very well that there is definitely a problem in this situation. Therefore, Roland turned on all the induction skills and observed the surroundings carefully. Sure enough, on that unusual big tree, there was a giant snow-white creature perched. However, because the other party was lying down, and the leaves and branches blocked his view, Roland couldn't see what it was. However, judging from the opponent's size, it is very likely to be the overlord of this forest. And this kind of existence is precisely what Roland most wants to prey on. At this time, Roland has already expressed 10,000 interest and expectations. After all, although he has mastered a lot of skills, he has never met any decent opponents. Roland is already a little bit eager for skills. If the opponent is the overlord of this huge forest, he should have some fighting strength, maybe he can fight well. Walked directly into the open space, but the other party didn't respond. Roland simply fired a water knife tentatively at the place where it was. Call out! There was a sound of piercing the air, and the water knife streaked across an afterimage, and quickly flew towards the white creature. However, this trick of Roland Braun's water jet cutting skill finally missed once. I saw that the white creature lying motionless on the tree suddenly disappeared, and Roland's water knife cut directly on the tree, cutting off the huge branch that was 1 meter thick. However, because of the interlacing of other branches, the broken branch did not fall off. However, Roland didn't have time to worry about whether the tree trunk would fall, because element perception told him that after the huge white creature jumped away from the tree trunk, it flashed towards him. Of course, Roland also has flash skills. He jumped hard and avoided the attack of the white creature. The creature confiscated it, and punched it hard on the ground. Boom! With a loud noise, a huge pit appeared directly on the ground. At this time, Roland also saw clearly the appearance of the white creature, which was actually a huge white ape. After the punch was missed, he slowly got up, then roared and hammered his chest hard. Suddenly, his movements froze, and he spoke, "It's really strange, how can you make such a strong attack with such a small person? You can talk." Roland was a little confused. "Can you understand me?" "No." "How can you speak human language?" This was the voice of the giant ape, and it seemed even more confused. Chapter 13. Roland was speechless when he heard the words, "Why do you feel like you are scolding me? Call you? Have you?" The white ape scratched its head, "But you should be scolded. What do you want? How dare you attack me? Don't worry about that kind of thing." By the way, I've been walking in this forest for so long, and it's the first time I've met someone who can talk to me. You're so intelligent. You're pretty good, Roland said cheerfully. At that time, he had already noticed that it was not the white ape who could speak human language, but because of the translation function that came with the system. Don't change the subject, the white ape roared, say it. What the hell are you? Where did you come from? What are you doing here? Don't you know this is my domain? Roland chuckled, I really don't know. Are you kidding me? Bai Yuan's voice was still loud, quickly answer my question. Otherwise, I'll punch you to death. You are quite arrogant, Roland sneered, if you want to hammer me to death, then try it, and see if you hammer me to death, or I eat you. The white ape hit his chest and roared, you little one. Let me tell you. You have successfully pissed me off. Finally met a more decent-looking opponent, Roland is in a very good mood now, he partially mimicked a giant black palm, and waved at the white ape, what's the point of shouting? Come on. Be brave ah! The white ape froze for a second, then bared his teeth abruptly, staring at Roland with a flushed face. Roar! With a roar, the white ape jumped up and punched Roland hard. The distance of nearly 10 meters between Roland and him didn't seem to exist. As soon as the roar started, it had already reached Roland's head. Roland only felt that his surroundings suddenly became dark, but he didn't panic, but raised the giant palm that had just been mimicked, and greeted it. He mimicked this not only to provoke the white ape. Although this giant palm is only mimicking a black bear that is obviously not as good as the white ape, Roland has attached various things to it that can make it tougher, stronger, and sharper. Skills. Boom. With a loud noise, punches and palms had already collided heavily. The powerful impact caused strong whines all around, and cracks appeared on the ground under Roland's feet. However, nothing happened to Roland, not even a system notification that his body was damaged. But the white ape jumped away, shook his fist, and looked at Roland warily, what the hell are you? What is that huge bear's paw? Roland withdrew his bear paw imitation, it's just a little slime. Slime? What's that? I've never heard of it, White Ape said honestly. It's normal if you haven't heard of it. After all, you are just a monkey, and this is still a primeval forest. Roland said, the part on the right side spread out to the side again, which is a sign of imitation. As for the hand just now, that's my ability, it's called mimicry, as long as it's eaten, it can appear. While speaking, Roland had partially completed his mimicry, this time it was a huge tiger head, the washbasin-sized tiger eyes glowed with cold air, and the sharp tiger teeth shone with a penetrating light. Also, it was your turn just now, now it's my turn. As soon as the words fell, the huge tiger head imitated by Roland had already rushed towards the white ape. Behind the tiger head was a light blue viscous liquid, which was connected to Roland's left half. The tiger's head is 3 meters in diameter, much larger than the heads of the tiger-shaped animals that Roland preyed on. It is a rare upgraded mimicry ability, and it has various abilities including sharp teeth, tearing, and bite. The blessing of similar skills is astonishingly powerful, and it can be regarded as Roland's strongest means of mimetic attacks at present. You sneak attack again. With a roar, the white ape embraced the menacing tiger's head with both hands, stopping its movements. Roland retracted it hard, and the tiger head broke free from its hands, retracted it, and then rushed towards it again. Although every time he hit and broke free, the white ape would tear off a lot of tiger hair, and the tiger's face began to ooze faint blood, but anyway, he didn't feel pain, so Roland came so conveniently. While controlling the tiger head, making it stand in a stalemate with the white ape, he said, I clearly reminded him, how can it be called a sneak attack? It's just that the action is faster. Hey! The white ape snorted coldly, and didn't say any more, it had already put all its energy into dealing with this tiger head, which would not hesitate in its movements no matter whether it was poking its eyes or breaking its teeth. You can't do it like this? I'm very disappointed, Roland continued, although this tiger head is my most powerful move in terms of mimicry, I still have the ability to attack from a distance, and. Speaking of this, Roland's left body also began to change, which was also a precursor to mimicry. After a while, this part of the body also turned into a huge tiger head, exactly the same as the other. The two heads are connected together by light blue goo. I didn't say that I can only imitate a head, Roland said very proudly in his voice, it feels so good to feel like a strong person. The white ape was silent and did not speak, as if hesitating for something. What do you want to do now? Or just be eaten by me obediently, Roland continued, while controlling the newly mimicked tiger head to slowly move towards the white ape. Roland even controlled the head to lick it. Lick your tongue. The white ape remained silent. Oh? Don't open your mouth? That's fine, I appreciate your kind. In the middle of Roland's speech, he was suddenly interrupted by the white ape's shout, I surrender. Brother Slime. Can you let me go? Roland? Chapter 14. Admit defeat? Are you serious? Roland was still a little confused. Really? Big brother, you are so strong, but my little brother admits defeat, and the meat of my little brother is not tasty, so let me go, big brother, Bai Yuan said as he let go of the tiger's head, and retracted his chest, put on a defensive stance. This. Roland was really caught off guard, and was about to praise the other party for being a tough guy, when there was such a sudden twist. His face hurt a bit from the beating. But, do you really want to just let it go? That is impossible. Therefore, Roland withdrew his mimicry and turned into a harmless slime again. Oh, it's time for the mimicry ability. Not good. You slipped your tongue. Roland exclaimed, coughed lightly twice, and continued, Big man, you just said you want to admit defeat, right? That's really great. Move. I heard it, so there is still a time limit for this transformation, said the white ape, walking slowly towards Roland, Brother Slime, let me protect you before your ability recovers. No need, go and do your own business, Roland said angrily. That can't be done, Big Brother's safety is the most important thing. The white ape was already getting closer, and the ape's face was full of complacency. You don't want to go back on your word, do you? You just said you were going to admit defeat, Roland said anxiously. Admit defeat? I don't remember saying that, Bai Yuan's voice changed, returning to the original arrogance. So you didn't admit defeat? Roland's voice also changed, and he suddenly calmed down. The white ape felt something was wrong. And what Roland said afterwards made Bai Yuan's heart skip a beat, as if something was really wrong. Because that's what Roland said, that would be great. Then, Bai Yuan was still a little dazed, a wave of water guns, water knives and water cannons had already smeared his face. While struggling to avoid Roland's machine gun, the white ape roared, Slime the bastard! You lied to me! What did you say? Roland said, speeding up the attack frequency, and the white ape became a little too late to dodge. Roland's attacks are not a joke, it's fine if he misses, but if he hits, the power is very strong. The tough body of the white ape couldn't bear it anymore, and began to hang up his wounds. I'm talking about Brother Slime. I admit defeat. Stop fighting. Bai Yuan quickly changed his words. What are you talking about? The wind is too strong. Can't hear you. Roland yelled, speeding up his attack again. After all, the wounds on the white ape looked scary, but they were actually skin wounds. Not big. Brother. My dear brother. I know I was wrong. The ape is really going to die. Let me go, the white ape shouted heart-piercingly, his voice sounded a bit miserable. Now I know I was wrong? Didn't you still be arrogant just now? I still don't remember what I said. I don't know who you learned your rascal appearance from in this virgin forest. Roland didn't stop at all, attacking, still complaining. By the way, because slimes don't have mouths, these attacks are not sprayed from the mouth, and the vocal organs are not mouths, so the two do not conflict. Brother! I'm really going to die. I can help you with anything, please don't eat me. I don't have a wife yet, so I don't want to die. The injuries on his body have become more and more serious. Roland was a little dazed. It was because the way the other party spoke was too human-like. To kill the other party in this way was almost cut into pieces, and he felt inexplicably nervous. Finally, Roland sighed in his heart, forget it, let's see if he has other use value. He slowly stopped attacking, and quietly watched the opponent who had become Red Ape lying on the ground panting heavily. It's not impossible if you don't eat you, but you have to give full play to your value. Roland paused and continued, you are also the overlord of this neighborhood, so you should know where the treasure is, right? I mean you can replace it with a human treasures of money that can be used to redeem yourself. I know, Bai Yuan nodded again and again, and stood up from the ground tremblingly, I'll take the elder brother there right now, and hope that the elder brother will really let the younger brother go. You promised so simply, you must be cheating, right? Roland asked suspiciously. Absolutely not. How is it possible? I have already realized how powerful my elder brother is, and I also know that whether I can live or not depends entirely on his mood. How dare I play tricks? Bai Yuan quickly explained. Roland thought for a while. Anyway, his ability to escape is extremely strong, and it is worth the risk. He said, that's good, let's lead the way. Yes, please follow me, the white ape said, walking in the direction Roland came from, his steps staggering a bit. On the way, Roland and the others came across a stream. They said it was a stream, but it was actually several meters wide. Between the sea of trees and under the dense forest, the stream is clear and the sound of the water is crisp, which is quite beautiful. Unfortunately, neither Roland nor White Ape was in the mood to appreciate this kind of scenery. Has your wound stopped bleeding? Roland said suddenly. Yes, Bai Yuan replied subconsciously, and then said with some worry, brother, if you ask this, don't you mean you want to beat me up again? Don't worry, I'm not that ruthless, I just think your bloody red body looks too unsightly, go wash it off, Roland said lightly. You didn't do it. My original white hair is so clean. The white ape muttered softly, but still walked obediently towards the creek. Don't think I can't hear you. Roland shouted, and followed, also, don't try to escape, or don't blame me for being rude. I definitely won't run away, brother, don't worry, the white ape said quickly. It seems that it is really afraid of Roland now, and this big brother is getting more and more familiar. It took a lot of time, and the white ape finally turned back to white again. However, it was still a lot dirtier than it was at the beginning, and there was no way it could be done. Now there was no time for it to wash every hair slowly. After that, one ape and one slime continued on the road. Chapter 15. During the period, because he was a little tired of walking, Roland jumped directly on the shoulder of the white ape, and he wanted to take a mount. In the end, they arrived at a cave, and the trap Roland was worried about did not appear, and they successfully obtained a large pile of gold and silver treasures. When you are away from home, you can't do without money. Roland preyed on them all unceremoniously. Then, he looked at the white ape who was looking at him eagerly. What? Are you worried that I won't let you go? Don't dare, brother is a trustworthy slime, younger brother dare not doubt your words, said the white ape, it seems that its dogleg potential has been fully stimulated. Don't worry, you kept your promise and led me to find the treasure. Naturally, I won't regret it. If you want to leave, you can leave anytime, but do you plan to stay in this forest forever? Roland was in a good mood at this time, looking at this white ape, I also find it pleasing to the eye, and I can't help but have the idea of pulling it into the group. Yes, is there any question? White Ape nodded and asked with some doubts. Although he really wanted to leave quickly, his reason told him that it would be better to answer all Roland's questions before leaving. Are you interested in going to sea with me? Roland asked straight to the point. Go to sea? Be a pirate? Bai Yuan asked with some doubts. You even know about pirates? It seems that you have been nesting in the forest. Have you ever gone to sea? Roland continued to ask. No, the white ape shook his head. I'm just an ape, and I can't swim or row a boat. How can I go to sea? Then how can you understand human language? This is obviously an uninhabited island. Roland was a little confused. Could it be that this guy is still a genius born with knowledge? This is not an uninhabited island. Bai Yuan tilted his head and looked at Roland blankly. Really? Is there any hidden tribe in the forest? Roland guessed, and couldn't help but feel a little curious. Mysterious tribes generally have some black technology. It's not a tribe, it's a city, White Ape continued. Really? But when I looked at it from the sky, it was completely a dense forest. How could there be any city? Roland was a little confused. There was no need for the White Ape to lie to himself, but he had clearly seen it with his own eyes, so how could he believe it? Sighed? Heaven? Could it be that Big Brother can fly? White Ape exclaimed. It's enough to mimic the wings, Roland explained casually, and continued, don't talk about me, answer my question, is there really a city? Really, the White Ape nodded, maybe this forest is too vast. In comparison, although it is a big city, it still seems a bit small, and there is a long way to go from here to the city, the distance. So that's how it is. Roland couldn't help thinking, he suddenly wanted to go to the city to see, anyway, there was nothing worth preying on in the forest. By the way, Roland had already met White Ape on the way, and it was indeed the overlord of this forest. This was something to be proud of, but when talking to Roland, White Ape felt a little embarrassed. After all, he was beaten up by Roland just now. Roland looked at the White Ape. Let's go back to the topic just now, do you want to go out to sea with me? I haven't figured out what to do, and it doesn't have to be a pirate. After all, I'm the only one on board now, and I can slow down everything. Discuss slowly. That, can I refuse? Bai Yuan asked timidly. Why? You don't want to explore the unknown? Don't you want to feel the fun of adventure? Don't you want to make more interesting friends? Roland asked back. If I'm here, I can eat whatever I want and drink whatever I want, and those guys around me can't beat me. How comfortable my life is, why do I let myself fall into the dangerous unknown? Bai the ape looked like it was a matter of course. What he said was very reasonable, and Roland couldn't refute it. He already knew that the White Ape was a coward. However, Roland didn't want to give up just yet. It's rare to meet a large animal that can communicate. What a good mount, he must fight for it again. He continued, don't you want to become stronger? If you meet another guy like me who comes to explore the forest, you may not be able to survive. I'm still growing, as long as I eat more, my strength will naturally increase, Bai Yuan said, hammering his chest with a confident expression. You are the only one with a long body. Roland complained a little speechlessly. Bai Yuan was silent for a few seconds, then continued, anyway, there must not be many existences as strong as Big Brother in this world. You guessed it wrong, Roland smiled lightly, there are a lot of guys who are stronger than me in this world, otherwise I wouldn't have to come here to practice. Forget it, just treat you as a person who has no ambition and doesn't want to change. Better, but don't you feel lonely? An ape is alone in this big forest. No, Bai Yuan shook his head again, I am very familiar with the people in that city. I grew up in that city. That's why you are so spiritual. Roland paused, then continued, then why don't you stay in the city? Because I always accidentally damaged their house, I was kicked out by Wasner. Then I didn't go back in a fit of anger. White Ape said as if he was aggrieved. Was that Wasner? Roland caught the key word. It's the mayor of that city, Bai Yuan snorted coldly, a stinky old man. You've got something to do with the mayor, it seems that you're a very high class in the city, Roland said cheerfully, and was suddenly taken aback. No. You've been kicked out, so you're still alone, aren't you? Why aren't you alone? Someday I feel lonely and want to go back, so, just. Bai Yuan couldn't help but get stuck. Just what? Go back in despair and apologize to them? Let them take you in again? Then promise not to destroy the house again, eh? The White Ape fell silent. But Roland didn't stop, he wanted to strike while the iron was hot. Besides, you just said that you don't have a wife yet. If we go to sea together, maybe we can meet your favorite ape. The White Ape continued to remain silent. Also, I can communicate with you, can they understand you? Roland continued. Still silent. Forget it, look at how wronged you are, I won't force you, Roland said, suddenly jumping on the White Ape's shoulder. Take me to that city. You think about it slowly on the way. If you agree, just say goodbye to them, and then go together to help you find a wife. If you don't agree, try to reconcile with them. In the future, you can just find an ape to live. Got it? The White Ape answered, turned around and walked out of the cave. Chapter 16. Between the dense forest, a white giant ape is running wildly. And on the shoulder of the White Ape, lay a light blue round creature, shaking with the ups and downs of the White Ape's movements, but it was never shaken off. This is naturally Roland. At this time, they had advanced for half a day, and at the speed of the White Ape, they had already crossed a very vast distance. Suddenly, the White Ape slowed down and then stopped slowly. What? Are you here? Roland asked suspiciously. Well, Bai Yuan nodded his head, it's not far ahead, that. I won't go there. What? Afraid they will beat you? Roland said a little speechlessly. Bai Yuan quickly shook his head, no, how could they beat me? It's just that I don't want to see them. Do you feel ashamed? Forget it, if you don't go, don't go. I can go by myself. By the way, have you made up your mind? Do you want to go to sea with me? Roland returned to the original topic. I really want to be together, but I'm just an ape, I can't swim, I can't sail a boat, and I can eat well. The White Ape hesitated. It's all trivial. I'm still a slime. I don't have hands or feet, so I can go to sea? Anyway, you just agree, Roland paused, and continued, by the way, do you have a name? Yes, the White Ape nodded, they all call me Waji. Okay, Roland coughed softly, now I solemnly declare. You, Waji, officially became the second crew member on our ship. Yes. Brother Slime. White Ape also shouted excitedly. Of course, if there are outsiders, they will only think that he just yelled. Call me the captain. Roland corrected. Yes. Captain. Phew, it's great to finally find our first partner, Roland heaved a sigh of relief, and then couldn't help thinking. After a while, he came back to his senses and continued, since you want to go out to sea with me, it's better to meet them, and say goodbye to them by the way, don't be afraid of losing face, men must dare to take and let go, just do it. Waji hesitated for a moment, then finally nodded, okay. After going forward for a while, Roland and Waji finally left the forest, and what Roland perceived ahead was a new world completely different from Kokozia village. Horse-drawn carriages, masonry roads, oil and gas street lamps, Western-style retro Western-style buildings. Although I knew that in the world of One Piece, each island has a different style, but this style of the European continent 200 years ago still surprised Roland. However, what surprised Roland even more was the various pedestrians on the street. Different from the original small island, besides the citizens, there are also swordsmen with samurai swords, gunmen with flintlock guns, or other guys with various weapons on the streets here. As for the facial features, some of them look gentle and kind, while others are vicious, as if they would draw a gun and shoot at you at any moment, probably pirates. Then there is the appearance. In addition to the different hair colors, there is also a big gap in height. Although most of them are the same as ordinary people, there are also big men as high as 3 meters and 4 meters, and some of them can't even be called human beings. Sure enough, it has the characteristics of One Piece. However, at this moment, these strange guys seem to glance over here from time to time. Is there something strange behind me? Roland thought with some doubts. Of course, this is impossible. Slime has a 360-degree viewing angle and can see clearly behind him. After a while, Roland came to his senses, as if what they were looking at was himself and Waji. Let's go find that Wasner, Roland said to Waji, no longer caring about the other side. Well, the white ape nodded, and walked directly to the street, and then, under the gaze of pedestrians. Hey! What are you looking at? Roland was speechless. What are you doing? Don't cause trouble. Oh! Sorry, I know I was wrong. It's a pity that others couldn't understand Waji's words, they just thought he was yelling again. Under the pressure of its nearly 6-meter figure, some people ran away in a panic, while others drew their knives out of their sheaths, looking alert or eager to try. What are you panicking about? Take the knife back for me, we're just here for a stroll, there's no need to be so murderous, Roland said directly. But as soon as Roland's voice fell, the crowd exploded. Hey, hey, hey! Did I hear you right? Orangutans can talk. I heard that too. What the hell is going on? Another person next to him also shouted in agreement. Now Roland was unhappy, and shouted, are you all blind? There's still a slime here. What? Isn't this orangutan talking? What's a slime? Another passerby shouted, looking around at the same time. The person next to him did the same thing, but his words were different from the previous one. Slime? Is it the kind of slimy, cute slime in picture books? Another person who had read a similar picture book quickly retorted, impossible. It's just a fictional creature. How can there really be slimes in this world? Someone must be hiding on this gorilla and pretending to be a ghost. It's a pity that no one has noticed Roland. After all, his body is really too small compared to Waji, and he is still on Waji's shoulders, which is more than 5 meters tall. Perhaps realizing this, Roland jumped off Waji's shoulder.